Patreon Q&A number 114. I want to thank all 115 of my amazing patrons, guys. Thank you so much for continuing to support me the way that you have been. To everyone else listening, there's going to be spoilers for all of the series that I'm going to be talking about, so tread carefully. Mellow asks, what matchup between two characters would you like to see that hasn't happened in One Punch Man? So I think I might have talked about this a couple of Q&As ago, but definitely Boros versus Blast. Now, yeah, I know that's like a crazy dream matchup that we'll never see, or never even come close to seeing, or even, I guess, even try to figure out what would truly happen. But I personally just want to see that match the most because, guys know I love Blast, and so do you, but also Boros is pretty fantastic as well. But also they pretty much represent the top of the power scale, even currently. Now, while we haven't seen Blast in action, he still represents like what the pinnacle of power is outside of Saitama. And Boros represents that as well, because we've actually seen what he's capable of. And to this day in the manga, he's still, you know, pretty much the top of the top, at least until, you know, Awaken Garo's feats and maybe even Golden S feats come around to the manga. So I guess this mainly comes down to like two things here. The first one, you know, majorly being that I want to see Blast in action, and I also want to see him go against someone who is going to, you know, push him to make him, you know, go 100%, I suppose. And then number two is I want to see Boros go against somebody besides Saitama that's also going to push him. So these are like the two best candidates, and also we get to see like, okay, how strong is Blast truly, and how strong was Boros truly, because, you know, we haven't seen him go against anyone, like I said, outside of Saitama. So we're just guessing that maybe he would just wreck everyone outside of Blast. But then again, we don't know about Blast really. We just know the legends of him and his rank being number one. This is mainly just like the best matchup for me personally. Even better than Boros versus Awaken Garo. That's probably number two, but man, Blast versus Boros, it would be so amazing if that were to happen. But you know, I guess maybe one day somebody will make a fan manga of this, wink wink. And then your second question, what do you think is the most underrated feat in One Punch Man? So I don't know what feats are technically considered underrated, honestly. Aside from like the physical feats, I think that King defeating that one mimic monster via fear is pretty incredible. And I don't know if that's necessarily underrated, because the review that I did on that has like, I think, over 100,000 views on it. So I don't know, but if I had to pick one, it would be that. That's one of the craziest feats in the series. Like Tatsumaki pulling the base out and twisting the city, and the continent shaving, and the serious punches, all that stuff's cool, but death via fear is something else entirely. Beowolf asks, what are your expectations for Demon Slayer Infinity Train and Season 2? Demon Slayer Infinity Train is apparently incredible. I mean, it smashed all those box offices in Japan, and the manga arc of it is pretty great. So I'm assuming the movie is going to adapt it just as well as Season 1 of the anime, you know, adapted the first 54 chapters or something like that. So I think it's going to be, you know, one of the best anime movies ever, probably. I mean, it already is technically, but I mean, at least from my opinion, after I view it, I'm assuming it's going to land on that list. And then for Season 2, I think Season 2 is going to be better than Season 1. Like, the story is already fleshed out at this point, so we don't have to go through the building blocks and everything, and we can just get into, like, the crazy battles that are going to happen within that season. I don't know how long it's going to be, but I'm assuming it's definitely going to pick up after the Infinity Train, since that's the movie. So it's going to start around, like, chapter 68 or something around there, maybe. And then I assume it's going to go maybe all the way up to chapter 131. I don't know if you've read that far, so I won't spoil what happens, but around chapter 129, there's like a major revelation that happens within the series, and I think that would be a pretty cool place to end Season 2 on. And for your second question, what are the top 5 best anime fights in my opinion? Man, I'm not qualified to answer this question. And I know you said not necessarily your favorite ones, but I mean, I guess I kind of have some bias here because most of these are my favorites, but no particular order. Boros versus Saitama, come on, it's immaculate. Goku versus Vegeta, the first fight, I think that's pretty remarkable even to this day. Vash versus Knives, the final fight of Trigun, that's amazing. Sasuke versus Naruto from the end of Shippuden, that is, you know, amazing and will probably go down as one of the best ever. And then All Might versus the USJ Nomu. That's probably going to anger some people. I don't care. I love it. I think it's one of the best. Dino W asks, who would you rather have as a father, Endeavor or Homelander? So I'd rather have Endeavor because Homelander's like just straight psychopath, unredeemable pretty much. And though he did have some fatherly moments in season 2, he still don't want him as a dad still. Endeavor, though, yeah, he gets a bad rap and he did do some really horrible things, but I personally would like it if he was my dad because he would obviously train me to be excellent, and that's something that I personally would have liked to have in my life. I didn't grow up with a father, but if I did, I would have liked it to be like Endeavor. I know that's very controversial. Obviously, I wouldn't want him to abuse my mom or any other siblings, just me. But, you know, all for the purpose of making me great later on in life. And then your second question, who wins between Big Z and Stain? Big Z, my custom My Hero character that I made a video on earlier this week. He would probably defeat Stain. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but his quirk is just crazy. And I don't think Stain would be able to overcome something like that. I mean, we saw him go against Izuku at that point, who was only at like 5%. Even though he was injured and assisted by, you know, Ida and Todoroki, still, it's just not looking good for Stain in this matchup. Can Stain win? Of course. He could just, you know, somehow pull it out. But on paper, Big Z is a little too much for somebody like him. GardenShed asks, what if Tokoyami and Dark Shadow are conjoined twins? Tokoyami is actually quirkless and Dark Shadow has a quirk. It's possible, but I don't think that's the case. I mean, clearly, because we don't have any evidence to support that within the series, they never really talk about it, and Dark Shadow is just straight up stated as being his quirk. And Dark Shadow's sentience is weird. Like, sometimes he's just like a tool, and then sometimes he has like a full-blown personality and like can talk and things. So, I mean, it's possible that that could be his backstory, but as far as I know, Horikoshi has never revealed anything close to that being true with Tokoyami. Honestly, we don't even really have much of a backstory on Tokoyami. Like I said, it could be revealed as like a big twist that that's like something that happened, and it could happen within the My Hero world, I suppose. But until we get more information, I'm just led to believe that it's just his quirk. Joe D asks, I like your My Hero character you mentioned, and you want to make one of your actual self. Any hints as to what you want your quirk to be? I'm gonna keep it basic, and I would just still want it to be like, you know, the power stockpiler aspect of One for All. That's the moveset that I really like the most, you know, like super fast, super strong, super durable. So if I can somehow have a quirk that makes me like that, but not too busted, like I would be fine with just having 20% full calling. I would, whatever quirk allows me to have that, I think that would be awesome. I don't really need anything more than that. Then your second question, where do you see your channel heading a year from now? Ideally, I would like to be at the point of where I'm covering like 7 different series or even more. Like that's what I'm working towards right now. And when I say cover series, I mean like ongoing series. I mean, I'm going to make content for series that have completed soon, like Demon Slayer. But I'd like to get to the point of where I'm making like reviews for like 6 or 7 different series, along with like topical videos pertaining to them. L asks, I hurt my back in the gym about 2 weeks ago. I'm not certain if it was because of too much weight or the technique slacking some, but I finally went to the doctor, got an x-ray, and I have a degenerative disc disease in my spine. It's common for people 60 and over. Be careful in your pursuit of swollenness. Hey, I'm sorry to hear that, L. That really sucks. I mean, I looked it up. I don't know, besides like what they say, like exercise and other things that can treat it, but maybe you can get some Regenikine or stem cells if you go out of your country. I don't know if you're from America, but they don't like that stuff here. But there might be some treatments to it, depending on your financial situation, but I don't think this is the end. You could definitely overcome that, but I mean, if it's not too debilitating, I would just say keep going to the gym, keep doing your thing, as long as your body allows you to. But hey, I'm pulling for you, and congrats on reaching 190. Legendaryus asks, wouldn't Saitama have the best teaching method since his disciples in the S class and Atomic Samurai is in second with number 2 in A class and Tank Top Master in third with Vegetarian? I think also in A class. With his criteria, who are the best teachers in order? I wouldn't necessarily say that Saitama is the best teacher because his student is in the S class. I mean, if you just want to use it as like, you know, regardless of what you do, it's just who your student is makes you the best teacher, then I suppose Saitama is, because it's like nothing he really taught Genos or anything remotely close to that has led Genos to being in the S class. It's everything that Dr. Guseno has done, along with whatever training Genos received off panel in his past or whatever. But even then, if you still want to use that requirement, I would say that Bang is probably the best teacher, since Garo is his student technically, and I think Garo would rank above Genos if they were in the S class, even though Garo technically isn't. But if he were to join, I mean, come on, he would easily be S class. But other than that, yeah, it would be Atomic Samurai and then Tank Top Master. Vegetarian, before he retired, was in the A class. Little Ferrari asks, I thought Ultra Instinct was a state of being, but the manga makes it look like it's another form when all of the others are giving Goku energy at the end of the battle with Moro. What are your thoughts? So yeah, the writing of the anime and the manga have led to this confusion among the fan base, because this is in fact clearly another form for Goku, but they don't specifically say that it is, even though it, you know, clearly is. The silver hair, the aura, the power, everything. It's definitely another form, but they keep calling it Ultra Instinct, which is like misleading, because yes, he does have the Ultra Instinct technique, which we know Ultra Instinct is that because that's what they said it was. They didn't say that it was a transformation. They said that it was just the ability to defend and attack subconsciously, which, you know, the God of Destructions can learn and whatnot. Beerus knows it way better in the manga. At least it's kind of implied that way. But obviously when Beerus uses Ultra Instinct, he doesn't turn silver and have the power up and all that stuff, because it's a technique or an ability or whatever. So instead of calling this Ultra Instinct Goku, they should have called it whatever. Ultra Goku would have even been better, or just, I don't know, Super Silver or Silver Goku, whatever. Just calling it Ultra Instinct is just problematic, you know what I mean? But it definitely is a form. Natedawg asks, could manga Tatsumaki solo all the webcomic Contras at once? Probably. I mean, her feats are insane compared to the webcomic feats. I mean, in both iterations, she pulled the bases out of the ground, but you know, clearly she's done a lot more in the manga than she did in the webcomic. And the cadres in the webcomic appear to be weaker than the cadres in the manga. And she was already doing well against them in the webcomic just by herself. So without the damage and all that stuff, I think it's fair to say that she could probably solo them. Depending on how outrageous Black S gets, but I assume that she could probably even take him too. Nathan W asks, what are your top 1 or 2 manga anime that you would love to see get a makeover from Murata from any time period? I'd like to see One Piece get a makeover by Murata. I mean, that's a tall order, of course, but not saying that One Piece is bad, drawn bad or anything. Oda is a fantastic artist, and it's pretty iconic, and I do like the way that he does things. Although it does, you know, have its own problems, but you know, no manga is perfect. I would just really like to see Murata's take on that, because Boichi, who does Dr. Stone and a few other series, redrew the whole Mihawk versus Zoro thing, and that looked incredible. So I'd love to see Oda do a similar thing, but you know, with the whole series. Like, if we could just make a wish and snap and it happened, that would be incredible. Parkhertruck asked, what is a more gruesome end to your life than being killed and turned into a Nomu? Food for thought. This is about All Might. So the prophecy from Night Eye about All Might's gruesome death. I just assumed it was him being decayed by Shigaraki. Like, all things seem to point to Shigaraki killing All Might, and we've seen other people throughout the series get decayed by Shigaraki, and it's a pretty gruesome death. So I assume that's what the prophecy is headed towards. Delamante asks, what are your top 10 favorite moments in Demon Slayer, anime or manga? So I assume that you've read the whole manga at this point. So I'm gonna go all the way up to chapter 130. That's as far as I am. And I don't know if I have 10 favorite moments, but I do have a few. So some that come to my mind, like you already know, I said this before, I liked when the Muzan's introduction. I thought that was amazing when it turned out that, like, you know, he was living this secret life, and then we find out that he's living like multiple secret lives, which is pretty cool. And then I also liked when Tomioka showed up to save Tanjiro from Rui. I thought that was a really cool moment. Also in the manga, when Uzui teams up with Tanjiro Inosuke and Zenitsu to fight the, I think he was Upper Six, right? The brother and sister duo of the 12 Kazuki. That whole sequence was awesome. I just really liked how that fight went on. I thought it was pretty cool. Rengoku versus Akaza is pretty awesome. Like, Akaza just showing up out of nowhere. You really get that sense of like, oh wow, this guy's really powerful, he's really dangerous, and like things aren't really looking good. And then when Rengoku dies, it's like, oh wow, I guess no one's really safe in this series. And I also like when Nezuko like further develops her demon abilities. She gets the horn, she has like the blood art stuff that she does that catches on fire and like hurts the demons and whatnot. I like that sequence as well. And also, and the sequence that I just got to is when it turns out that Nezuko can survive in the sunlight, and it's revealed that like she's like the destined demon from the lineage of Muzan. And then we get Muzan's backstory, which still isn't completely fleshed out at this point, but it's all pretty awesome stuff. I'm really enjoying it so far. Wolffire54 asks, what kind of god do you think the being called God is? Do you think he's a higher being from a different dimension, a god hand type of god like from Berserk, where the being called, or he was a god, might have been a human at some point? I'm leaning towards that. Like, I'm thinking that he was probably a human at first, and as for him being called God, I think it's he himself that calls him that. I don't think he's like a literal god of the One Punch Man universe or whatever, because that would pretty much make him omnipotent, and that's no fun. But all of the information that we've been given so far makes me think that he was a human at one time, and he's possibly the first monster, most likely. Now also, there's a possibility that he's interdimensional, or he's like a being from space or something like that. That's possible as well. There is some evidence to kind of support that. But given all of the information we have, like I said, it more so seems like he was a human. And then your second question, do you think Suiko's appearances could have been inspired by Casca from Berserk? It's very possible, because she does look like Casca. And also we talked about in the Q&A before that Tatsumaki looks like that other Berserk character. I forget her name, but very similar looking. And you know, Casca looks just like Suiko, so it is possible that one is influenced by Berserk. I'm sure it's one of the mangas he read growing up. I mean, it's been around for like 30 years at this point, so it makes sense to me. Crazy Iguana asked, do you think USJ All Might could destroy the meteor from One Punch Man? You're gonna get me into trouble with this one. Whenever I praise All Might even a little bit, people get upset for some reason. So I would say that he could, but he would have to use the United States to smash, most likely to be able to defeat it, or the vestige power up, like the toom 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 toom, and then when he punched the Nomu, he would need to have something like that. But most likely the United States to smash. I think that could probably get the job done here. Like I said, that's gonna anger some people. Oh well. That's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Once again, I want to thank all 115 of my awesome, attractive patrons. Guys, thank you again. Your support means the world to me. And if you would like to be in next week's Q&A, simply check out the Patreon. The $5 tier will give you access to this video. Also, please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.